United Way of America, based in Alexandria, Virginia, is a non-profit organization that works with almost 1,200 offices throughout the country in coalition of charitable organizations to pool efforts in fundraising and support. Also, design programs to motivate the youth to become involved within the community. United Way became the largest and most respected charity in the States and became the recipient of 90% of all charitable organizations. Also gained strong employee support by involving them as leaders of annual and widespread publicity. United Ways focus to identify and resolve pressing community issues and to make measurable changes in communities through partnerships with schools, government agencies, businesses, organized labor, financial institutions, community development corporations, voluntary and the faith community, and others. The main areas include education, income, and health. United Way of America has been the largest non-profit organization by donations from the public prior to 2016 and celebrated its 100-year anniversary in 1987. It had evolved from local community chess, and its strategy for fundraising had proven highly effective, funding local charities through payroll deductions. William Aramoni was president of United Way of America and the highest paid executive in the charity field. He received questionable amount of compensation and helped United Way grow to more than $3 billion in 1990 from $787 million in 1970. Williams' contributions. Contributions increased from $787 million in 1973 to $3 billion in 1990. He increased his headquarters budget from less than $3 million to $29 million in 1991. Of this, $24 million came from the local United Ways, with the rest coming from corporate grants, investment, income, and consulting. He built up the headquarters staff to 275 employees. Board members of United Way of America. The board was chaired by John Akers, chairman and CEO of International Business Machines. Other board members included Edward Brennan, CEO of Sears, James Robinson, CEO of American Express, and Paul Tagliabue, Commissioner of the National Football League. The presence of such top executives brought prestige to United Way and spurred contributions from some of the largest and most visible organizations in the United States. In 1992, the image that United Way had created was jolted by revelations from investigative reporters of free spending and other questionable deeds of its greatest builder and president, William Aramoni. A major point of public concern was Aramoni's salary and uncontrolled perks in a lifestyle that seemed inappropriate for a charitable organization that depended mostly on contributions from working people and later retired amid allegations of fraud and financial mismanagement, of which he was subsequently convicted. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison and fined $300,000. The Washington Post began investigating Aramoni's tenure as president of United Way of America in 1991, raising questions about his high salary, travel habits, possible cronyism, and dubious relations with 5 spin-off companies. In February 1992, it released the following information of Aramoni's expense charges. Some of examples are: Aramoni had charged $92,265 in limousine expenses to the charity during the previous 5 years. He had charged $40,762 on airfare for his supersonic concert. He had charged more than $72,000 on international airfare that included first-class flights for himself, his wife, and others. He had passed tens of thousands of dollars in consulting contracts from the United Way of America to friends and associates. United Way of America's corporate policy prohibited the hiring of family members within the actual organization. But Armani skirted the direct violation by hiring friends and relatives as consultants with the spin-off companies. In addition to the decrease in dues payments, United Way of America was in danger of having its non-profit status revoked by the International Revenue Service because of the loyalty to the spin-off companies. The adverse publicity benefited competing charities such as Earthshare, an environmental group. On February 28, amid mounting pressure from local chapters threatening to withhold their annual dues, Armani resigned. In August 1992, the United Way Board of Directors hired Elaine Chou, director of the Peace Corps, to replace Armani.
You know, the way that I think about diversity and inclusion as it relates to our work in United Way is that's how we define ourselves. And so it's diversity and inclusion isn't a department and it's not a thing you do. It's the definition of how we do our work.
Vital human services and education and health and financial stability. If we're serious about doing that, then that means we need to engage the whole community.
The value of diversity and inclusion is pretty straightforward. And maybe actually in this case, it took corporate America to really sort of lead the way for us, maybe even more so than before nonprofits and the government. It's just the right thing to do. There's a business case for it.
We're going to succeed as local communities, as a national community, and as a global community if we truly are communities that are totally inclusive. As leaders, you and we have to see our commitment and the time and energy we put into diversity and inclusion the same way you think about your campaign, the same way you think about your community impact strategies. If we don't weave this strategy and your personal leadership commitment to it into an annual campaign, it won't happen.
We try to make sure that we build in enough accountability and enough reporting and enough intentionality that we don't lose sight of what we're doing.
As boards and as CEOs, we build it into our performance metrics.
We develop a diversity plan every year that goes to the board of directors. It has targets in it. It has a whole program of activities.
If we do that, then it sends a very clear message that, one, this is important, it's got to get integrated into everything we do, and it'll drive performance.
I consider us kind of community trustee. We're supposed to know what the needs of the community. How can we possibly do that unless we have all of those perspectives in the room, sharing?
If we model it, if we, as an institution, truly model diversity and inclusion, it affects the community.
The fundraising part of our business at United Way, many times we segment. We'll have a women's leadership effort around fundraising. Sometimes we'll have one, as we do here at the United Way, an African American perspective, a key club. When you think about advancing the common good, you are really trying to make sure that every man, woman, and child in your community has the opportunity to live We're in our second year of our Pride Leadership, which again is a leadership development program specifically for individuals from the LGBT community.
Over the past couple of years, especially, companies are becoming more and more aware and starting organizations within their companies. This is the perfect fit to allow our community to be involved in these different agencies, to bring our perspective, to let everybody understand what's important to us. And in some cases, we're very similar. And I think that's part of the aha for a lot of individuals. It's like, wow, you hear their life experiences and they're not that different from mine.
The work is never done, and you can never rest on your laurels. Just because more than 2 decades ago we started our diversity efforts doesn't mean we're done.
I think too many times we try to have a very narrow definition of what diversity is. And it will change as community changes.
If we're going to advance the common good in terms of educating all of our children, it's going to take everybody. You know, we've proven that you can't do it just as a school system and just as a group of parents. So through inclusion and making sure that all resources, all ideas, all voices come to that table is how we're going to advance the common good in communities.
Eleni Shaw earned an economics degree from Mount Holyoke in 1975, then went on from a Harvard MBA. She was a White House Fellow and International Baker, Chair of the Federal Maritime Commission, Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Transportation Department, and Director of the Peace Corps before accepting the presidency of the United Way of America. Cole's salary was $195,000, less than half that of Armoni, a local United Way's concern. In April 1993, for his second time in a year, United Ways of Greater Lorain County withdrew from the United Way of America. In particular, it was concerned about the retirement settlement for Armoni. A significant golden parachute retirement package was being negotiated by the National Board and Armoni. It was the neighborhood of $4 million. Learning of this triggered the decision to withdraw again from United Way of America. Roy Church, the national agency, was failing for short of this project budget, as only 890 of the 1,400 affiliates that had paid members those 2 years before were still paying. The benefit of paying a United Way of America members isn't there at this time for Lawrence United Way. Eleni Shaw's task of restoring United Way of America would be easy. Shaw's remedial efforts. Eleni Shaw did a fine job. She was hired to restore public faith and confidence in the United Way, and this she did. She oversaw formation of new oversight committees and established policy that would ensure the United Way of America will be accountable and responsive to local United Ways. The Board of Governors was expanded from 30 to 45 members and included more local representatives. Shaw's remedial efforts. Eleni Shaw did a fine job. She was hired to restore public faith and confidence in the United Way, And this she did. She oversaw formation of new oversight committees and established policy that would ensure the United Way of America will be accountable and responsive to local United Ways. The Board of Governors was expanded from 30 to 45 members and include more local representatives. Public image for non-profit organizations. Product-oriented firms ought to be concerned and protective of their public image. This is even more so for non-profit organizations such as school, police department, hospital, politicians, and most of all, charitable organizations. Non-profit are particularly vulnerable to public image problems because they depend solely on voluntary support. The need to untainted by any scandal becomes critical. In particular, great care should be external that contributors are being spent wisely and equitably, that overhead costs are kept reasonable, and that transparency affords little opportunity for fraud and other misdeeds. The threat of investigate reporting must be feared and guarded against. On May 20, 1996, she announced her resignation effective September 1st. My job is complete, she said. Her plans were to lecture, join a Washington think tank, volunteer for Bob Dolan's presidential campaign, and work for her re-election of her husband. Sandwich McConnell's contributions had still not reached level before the scandal came to light. Looking at one example, the nation's leading chapter, Claimant saw donation shipping considerable from the 1989-90 campaign that reached $52 million. Total contribution in 1995 were only $40 million and more than $1 million below the goal set at the beginning of the campaign.
Let's look Girl Scout cookies. The main funding source for the 2.6 million Girl Scout is the annual cookie sales, estimated to generate $400 million in revenue in 1992. The cookies set the price per box, which ranges from $2 to $3, divides the proceeds as it sees fit. The Girl Scouts troops get 10 to 15%. The council takes more than 50%, and the rest goes to the manufacturer. There are 332 regional councils in the United States, each having an office and paid staff overseen by a volunteer board. The bureaucracy does not tolerate dissent. Well, the Wall Street Journal cites the case of a West Haven Connected troop leader, Beth Danton, who protested both the way. The Connected Trails Council apparent revenue $1.6 million in salaries and benefits paid to 42 council employees. After she complained to the state attorney general, the council dismissed her as a leader. Analyzes. The worst case scenario is outright white-collar theft when unscrupulous people find it an opportunity for personal gain. Second, insufficient controls tend to promote a mindset of arrogance and allow people to play fast and loose with the system. Update. William Armoni was convicted of defrauding the United Way out of $1 million. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison for using the charity's money to finance. Second, United Way was still burdened with a tarnished reputation in 2000. Third, in early 2002, Brian Gallagher, and 21-year veteran of United Way of America, who was running the Columbus, Ohio affiliate, was named chief executive. The role of the board of directors. Today, more than ever, the board must assume an activist role, a role that is the protective of shareholders' rights, sensitive to communities in which the company operates, responsive to the needs of company vendors and customers, and fair to its employees. Many people consider this is no longer sufficient. Let's look time schedule. In 2004, United Way's former Washington D.C. chef pleaded guilty of stealing almost $500,000. In 2006, the head of the New York City affiliate was found to have taken $227,000 for personal use. Now, the biggest consolidation was in Chicago, where 50 separate United Ways were now down to a single one for metropolitan Chicago. 2007, revenue growing 2.3% to $4.07 million. In 2009, United Way worldwide. Let's answer the questions. First one, how do you feel as a potential or actual giver to United Way campaigns about Aramoni's high living? Would these allegations affect your gift giving? I felt terrible knowing all these facts where my contribution had been misused for his lavish lifestyle. I have a clear sense of white-collar crime under the opportunity fraud triangle, an image of high integrity and honest dealings without any semblance or corruption or privilege would seem essential for such organization. Let's answer the second question. What prescriptions do you have for thwarting arrogance in non-profit and or governmental organizations? Be as specific as you can and support your recommendations. I observed that the non-profit organization must also focus on the threat of investigative reporting. Along with this, they should also follow and adopt all the regulations, standards, guidelines, and policies conducted by the state and federal law and government.
Question 3. How do you personally feel about the coercion that some organizations exert for their employees to contribute substantially to United Way? What implications, if any, do you see as emerging from your attitudes about this? Taking advantage of other people's ideas and opinions, for example, the consequences are, as we have seen with William Aramoni, moving over edge of what those claim acceptable and ethical conduct, assuming the role of the final authority, who brokes no question or criticism. Since there is no bottom line evaluation for performance, non-profit have no incentives to control costs and prudently evaluation expenditure. I agree with this statement. Since there is no bottom line, then the business has no need to shoot for controlling costs. This can be very dangerous if the right people not in place.
How would you feel as a large contributor to a charity about its spending $10 million for advertising? Discuss your rationale for this attitude. I think high budget shouldn't be allocated to advertising campaign. I find it more convenient and logical to distribute the remainder of the advertising fee, which is considered to be high budget, to the aid. Do you think the action taken by United Way of America after Aramoni was the best way to salvage the public image? Why or why not? What else might have been done? I don't think enough was done to salvage the public image. The company could have come out and addressed what was happening within the organization. They could have done this by sending out a letter or doing a press conference in which they apologize and say that one person making bad decisions doesn't take away from all of the Lives United Way, has saved with the help of charitable donations. Could the child labor of Girl Scout cookie marketing be better handled? If so, how? No. If you find the concept of teaching kids to sell things morally objectionable, you are going to have to refuse to buy things not just from Girl Scouts, but also elementary school candy and wrapping paper drives, which are still a thing. Kids' team sport car washes, and of course the BSA popcorn sales. All of these things have been accepted for decades, though in the modern world they are taking different approaches to keep kids safe.